It's great that you are here, and you all possibly know about SEPAL much more than I do at this stage. What the FTN basically is for, that everybody else knows about these tools like SEPAL. So one of the ways of doing that is through recording and streaming the event. So I welcome everybody who is now out there somewhere outside this room and has the opportunity to follow. But what I believe we also need is that everybody else that is not following now gets a chance to be exposed to SEPAL and see what it can or cannot do for the different people. It is one of those initiatives that has now, well, a big status, not only SEPAL but also Open Foris in FAO, because it has, at a time when not everybody was thinking about digital technology, has brought people together who were really at the forefront of the thinking on these terms, and have brought that in a UN organization that is not always the fastest. And it has done so very successfully indeed, and hence I believe it's one of those things where FAO is really proud to be a world leader, and it's coming from the forestry department with the links to a range of other departments. And it's not only a world leader in terms of technology, it's also a world leader, at least from a FAO perspective, on how that group of excellent brains and hands has made it possible through partnerships with big private corporations. So basically, the two things that make SEPAL a success beyond the technical aspects is really the way of innovating in FAO, providing solutions that are applicable, and doing this in partnerships with other players. That's something that has it made strong before the DG is now calling for something like this across the organization in all of what we do. So congratulations, really. That's fantastic, and that is before you know what you have been doing or before I know what you have been doing in SEPAL. So we are really curious to learn more. I'm now standing between us all learning and you starting the show of introducing SEPAL. But the main point that I also wanted to make in this FTN is that this FTN is not only a mechanism to convey information back and forth, or information from headquarters to the fields, but also thinking jointly about collaboration and how we can use innovation solutions like SEPAL in the different daily jobs that we have in the different applications. So as you listen to this, and I don't know what will be coming, but as you listen to this, maybe you think about how could this be helpful to you in your different context and what you're doing. And hopefully we have an interesting discussion thereafter if there is time. And that will be possible if I shut up now and give the floor to the big bosses here on the podium. Thank you and all the best. Thank you again.
Well, thank you very much, Evold. Actually, I think you've done too good a job of raising expectations. But we'll try our best. I mean, as NFM team, we're super proud to host the first FTN Innovation Hub event, and I think we've chosen our date extremely well. I mean, many of you are following what's happening in New York today, when the world's leaders get together and try and work out how we can collectively confront the climate crisis that faces us and future generations on Earth. But it's also a super exciting day for my little team, the National Forest Monitoring Team. We officially launch in SEPAL 2.1. We have a new publication that Marieke will present, and we also are announcing some new data access, which is really the future for the way we should be monitoring our forests. So there is an FAO global press release. My colleagues in OCC assure me that it's on its way, but all this will be very nicely summarized in a global press release coming from FAO.org. But just to also welcome, you'll see some colleagues from the countries here. Another reason why it is a good day is we have, I think, 10 countries with us for 3 days of Open Forest SEPAL Intensive from countries like Indonesia, DRC, key forested countries that we support, and they're here with us today. So please engage in the discussions with the rest of the forestry department. So we're going to provide a bit of an update. These are really the experts over here and the people that have done all the hard work, but our director is also working very hard because later today in New York, she will present in a TED Talk what I'm going to present to you now, which is like a motivational style TED Talk, showing it's very visual, and then, and yeah, I hope to do it justice. Mette has memorized this, so she'll never forget SEPAL, that's for sure. But I'll start with this 5 to 10 minute TED Talk about our idea of Open Foris and SEPAL. Then I'll hand over to Marieke Sanka, our thematic lead on UNFCCC reporting, who will present the new publication, also launched today, which shows really marked progress in countries' ability to report to the convention. And a lot of that ability has come from really grassroots training, capacity development. And then the most exciting part is when I hand over to my esteemed colleagues here, Mr. Eric Lindquist, who's just arrived from Quito, Ecuador, where he's working really hard with the Ecuadorian government to institutionalize our tools, and Remy D'Annunzio and Elena Fangold, who are based here and also a part of our SEPAL team. So we want to get through basically 3 presentations and then leave 30 minutes to really have a good discussion about how these technologies, the new data access, can enhance what you need to do in the forestry department. So we'll try and make space for that. But I'm going to jump in to this very visual presentation. I cannot see the speaking points, can I? No, I can't see the speaking points. But that's okay, because, oh, it's going forward. But basically, we have a very fine-tuned TED Talk for Mette later. But I think as we know, and I'm preaching to the converted here, we know that forests are one of the key nature-based solutions that they are discussing in New York for 2 reasons. The first is that they contain an immense amount of carbon in their stocks, as well as peatlands, mangroves, and other carbon stores. And secondly, they have immense potential to help us restore ecosystems and draw down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So many of you may have seen the Science article, which was then the front cover of the Guardian Weekly about a month or so ago. They used open forest tools. And I mean, that wasn't the objective of writing science articles. Our key motivation is to support countries. But this really raised the profile of nature-based solutions in terms of the potential for carbon drawdown from forest restoration, which we're doing quite actively in this department. So we know those two things, keeping the carbon in the ground and restoration. We're working on that in the department. We have for 10 years. Many of you are involved and know of the REDD+, UNFCCC, the World Bank's Forest Carbon Fund. We're really trying to help countries keep what they have in the ground. And the second one is the newly announced UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, starting 2021 to 2030. That FAO is co-leading with UN Environment. So we'll continue to try and keep the carbon in the ground. Sorry, it's all pre-timed for Mette, so she has a different rhythm of speaking. So bear with me. All good. I can go through. Yes, I mean, how do we go about this? How do we go about this, keeping the carbon in the ground and the forest, and how do we go about restoration? Well, for the NFM team, we know the answer to that, and that is through planning and data collection, and really making sure that where we do restoration, we do it in the right areas. Where we're trying to stop deforestation, we're trying to do it in the right areas. And this is an example of a remote area national forest inventory, I think in 1964, that the NFM team was involved in. And currently, the team is supporting many countries around the world on capacity development, using what you'll see in a moment, using Open Foris and SEPAL, really accessible tools through which you can access all the world's best data. And we do this in the country, so to create locally relevant data, to help with local decision-making in the countries, in the ministries, in the communities, because that's where the decisions are made, and that's where I think you can have real change. I'm digging into my memory because I thought I would have the speaking notes here, but it's all good. So that's why we created Open Foris, because 10 years ago there was a huge problem with countries being able to access data and analyze data. So we have 6 platforms and applications in Open Foris, one of which we'll focus on today called SEPAL. But the idea is they're easy to use, and they they put at the country's fingertips really the world's best science. We moved the science from the scientific community to the countries. They're all open source. This is a collect mobile example. You can collect data in your forests on a mobile application and create a little database for forest inventory. And then we're doing many trainings around the world, and through this process, collecting information back, as is this week with our country colleagues, to improve and refine our platforms and tools. So SEPAL I'd say remote sensing in general is really an area that is advancing quickly. We can collect information on forests that are basically inaccessible. And we can do this at the really fine scale, the fine spatial scale and the fine temporal scale. And through SEPAL, we wanted to design a platform that was easy to use, that countries could do really advanced analysis without being geospatial experts. So these guys are geospatial experts. They built SEPAL, but you don't find many geospatial experts in the ministries where we're trying to work. So people can go in and in their own secure environment, they can do really advanced map production and result generation using SEPAL. So the whole idea was it would enable autonomous, and by autonomous we mean the countries doing it themselves, data collection, results generation, and reporting. And we're seeing that. We're seeing a huge amount of momentum in Marieka's new publication for countries having the capacity, the data, to write reports and report what's happening in their forests to the international communities. And we design it to work anywhere. It can work on a mobile phone. It only requires a fine bandwidth. So all the complicated computational analysis happens on the cloud. And you're just switching on and off supercomputers and implementing really sophisticated algorithms just by sending simple instructions from your mobile phone from the SEPAL interface. Some examples, we can create wall-to-wall maps. This is, I think, a mangrove area in Uganda. Not Uganda, Uganda's landlocked, so it's not Uganda, but I haven't got the speaking notes here. But we can create wall-to-wall maps of areas and ecosystems that we were not able to visualize previously. As I said, the new version 2.1, which will be officially launched any moment, as soon as that FAO global press release comes out, works from a mobile phone. The whole idea behind SEPAL was that somebody in Kinshasa could do incredibly sophisticated analysis using the world's latest geospatial information from a very basic device. We don't want any more technological barriers in the countries, and that's where we went with SEPAL, and that's what I have delivered. So we're doing many trainings around the world, and the most important things about building capacity in the countries is that's where the decisions are made. That's where people collect information. It's where they make decisions about land management. They can react immediately to this data. Global data sets are fantastic, but they can have some, I think, influence on transparency, but they don't generally change decision making. And that's where local capacity, locally generated results and products can have a real, I think, a catalytic effect on what we're trying to do here, and that is improve our overall forest and land management. So this is an example of an application built with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Indonesia inside SEPAL. And I'm getting right out of my depth here, but it fuses radar and optical data to create a soil moisture map that gives us an indication of peatland health. So the ministry, I think, has this running on their website, and they did this themselves, and now they're trying to understand how they can use this information to understand what's happening in their peatlands. Another example, I think Eric's going to talk more about this later. It's really beautiful. Was this an agricultural application?
That's a screensaver application.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and another thing, if you want to create really beautiful screensavers, you can in SEPAL, but that's not what it was designed for. So currently, we're super proud that SEPAL, we have 3,000 users in 160 countries, and Eric beautifully mapped out here from Rome, you know, where people are going into SEPAL and doing sophisticated analysis, and that's most parts of the world. So we're super happy, and these people are feeding back always constant information to the team here on how we can improve and refine these tools for what they need to do, and that was one of the objectives of this FTN session. So SEPAL is a truly collaborative platform. When you go in there, you'll see it's incredibly clean. There's not even an FAO logo on there, and that's for a reason. But there's no logos, and that's because everybody contributed. And if we wanted to put logos on there, you would see all this on the opening page, and you would be completely overwhelmed. But all the world space agencies are contributing to SEPAL. Some of the world's best universities that are working in the geospatial arena, such as ETH Zurich, Wageningen, and many other support providers, such as the World Bank Silver Carbon Program and others. So I won't talk too much about this, but in the last 5 years, we've seen incredible progress in the countries in their ability to have the capacity and access the data through things like Open Forest to create really solid reports to the UNFCCC. And this is a map of all the countries that have submitted reference emission levels to the UNFCCC, and then several that have gone on to submit REDD+ results. And this is significant. These are all the forested countries, and they're the countries which actually account for most of the forest loss. So we want these countries being able to measure and report. We want these countries to be engaged in initiatives like REDD+. So yeah, I mean, just some more fantastic pictures from the field, which is where NFM team works the hardest. And yeah, the most exciting bit, and another reason why it's a great day to have an FTN, late on Friday, we finally signed our agreement with Planet Labs. And some of you may know Planet Labs, but they're a private space company that operate 190 satellites that are in continuous orbit around the world. And they're the only image provider at the moment who can monitor everywhere on Earth every day with a refresh. So it's pretty much for remote sensing people. It's pretty much the very best data that's out there. We're going to start initially with 8 countries accessing this Planet Labs data, and the guys will talk more about the specifications of this, because I think there's an image there of a fire. With the way climate change is impacting our environment and the climate, we'll need to move to that finer scale reactions. We'll need to be able to see a fire, and we'll need to be able to react to it tomorrow. And the initial agreement with Planet Labs is a provision for the 8 country governments to have the capacity and to access this data. They're the people that need to do this in the ground to respond to the fires that are burning globally at the moment. And we hope to build the capacity on that through SEPAL and through our work in these 8 countries. If I had the speaking notes, I'd be able to tell you more about that, but they include the key forested countries like Indonesia, DRC, Ghana, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Mozambique, Mexico. There we go. So these are countries that with the World Bank, and the World Bank is a partner on this because they work a lot in forests and climate change arena. These are countries we thought that an investment could advance these countries quickly in understanding the relationship between their forests and climate change. But there is a lot more going on in this arena, and it positions us in a very strong position as FAO too. This is also an FAO-wide agreement where this data has so many applications to other SDGs well beyond the forest. So we're going to have some meetings with CIO, CBCD, and see how this access can enhance other work areas for SDG monitoring that fall in FAO's mandate. So this was a very inspirational message at the end of Mete's, and I can't quite remember what it was because I don't have the speaking notes here, but it was all about Mete saying we can change, we can collect data, we can build capacity, we can generate the information, but can we change minds? And her final phrase was, I think we can. So that's very inspirational, but I pass over to Marieke and to present some of the results that are in this publication. And also to mention, Marieke's publication is in the back in hard copy, and we also have very popular SEPAL notebooks that you're very welcome to collect. But thank you very much. Pass over to Marieke.
Okay, thank you very much, Julian. Just to say, it's not really my publication, it's a joint effort. Many colleagues contributed to this. Thank you very much for that. So this publication is being launched today at the Climate Summit by Mete, and it really summarizes the current state of REDD+ reporting to the UNFCCC by the countries. So far, like, our starting point is the Warsaw Framework, because that was when the final decisions on reference levels reporting they were finalized. So 2014, we see the first submission, and on the upper end of the line, you see the submission of reference levels. On the low end of the line, you see the submission of REDD+ results. So you see Brazil was a leader on both ends, being the first to submit a reference level, being the first to submit results. For those of you who are not so familiar with RED+, a reference level is a benchmark for assessing RED+ performance. It's usually based on historical emissions. It can have an upwards adjustment for countries which have pressure on their forest, which is increasing. So we can see up to date we have 39 countries that submitted a reference level, and I think in this room today we have a few other countries who might be adding their names to the list next year. We have a total of 45 reference level submissions, which obviously means that some countries have submitted more than once. This was for different purposes. So, for example, Brazil submitted different reference levels to cover another geographic area. So first it was for the Amazon, later they added the Cerrado. Other countries submitted again to improve their methodologies or to cover a different period for the results reporting. So all these countries together, 8 different countries with 10 different RED+ results submissions, have reported 8.7 billion tons CO2 to the UNFCCC. Now just to get an idea of the scale, that's more than the fossil fuel emissions of the US and India together annually though. So just to put this, Julian was already showing this map, but just to give a geographical view on this, you can see that the participation is among all the countries. So everybody is participating, which is great. We can also see that Latin America is more dark blue. They have more countries that are further ahead, already reporting RED+ results, and they can be seen as a leader in the field. So all these countries together cover about 1.5 billion hectares of forest, which is more than 1/3 of the global forest. But more importantly, they cover about 70% of the worldwide forest loss. So their participation is really relevant, and this relevance was already underlined by Julian. Forests play an important role both on reducing emissions and on increasing enhancement of the removals, removing CO2 from the atmosphere. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but just let's have a closer look on just a few topics. So what have countries, what is in the reference level of these countries? So you can see most countries include deforestation. That's for 2 reasons. They still are the largest source of emissions for most countries, and it is, we can measure deforestation with more reliability. It's more difficult to get reliable data on degradation. And if we look at the methodology for assessing deforestation, or what we in RED+ call the activity data, I don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but what we can see is a certain trend, where first what we call pixel count is countries submit areas extracted from maps directly, and we can see that this is decreasing. More and more we are moving away from using simply maps only, and we are moving towards using samples, which gives us, which is also because this helps us to estimate the certainty of the data. If we look on the other hand, so most countries to estimate emissions from forests, they combine activity data, so how much activity is, and emission factors, how much carbon per unit activity, for example, CO2 per hectare. We can see that most countries use inventory data. Countries that have a national forest inventory use it, but there are even a lot of countries that do not have a national forest inventory, but still they use data from forest inventories. So this figure shows that more than 50% of the countries that submitted have a national forest inventory, and close to 80% are working towards having a national forest inventory. So a quick view on what do these results look like. So I just chose like 4 countries here to give you an image of what it looks like. So on gray, that is the historical emissions. A lot of countries then calculate the historical average of those emissions, And then moving forward, they measure if the emissions fall below that line, and then the results is whatever they manage to reduce compared to the reference level. So in Brazil's case, the upper left corner, you can see that they use what they call a dynamic average. So every 5 years, they update their reference level, but they always go back to the year 96. So you can see here 3 reference levels and 3 results reporting. Colombia is a country which we would call a high forest, low deforestation country, or HFLD. So Colombia has proposed an upwards adjustment, in Colombia's case from 10%. So you can see that the reference level is above the historical average. Then we have Indonesia, which actually, if you watch carefully, there's 1 year where the emissions are actually above the reference level, so they have like negative results, but still they average it out and they report the net results that they have against this reference level. It also shows that there's a lot of interannual variation. The upwards trend in Indonesia is due to the emissions from peatlands, which continue over time and are cumulative. And then finally, Malaysia is an example where they have their reference level expressed in removals, not in emissions. And so their results are an increase in net removals. So the other countries which are not displayed here are Chile, Papua New Guinea, Paraguay, and Ecuador. So those are the 8 countries with REP+ results. So what activities contribute to these results, the 8.7 billion tons? Well, really most of them, 99%, come from deforestation. So this does not respond to the pie chart. For the pie chart, I took out Brazil, otherwise you just see one circle with one color. So if we do not consider Brazil, we still have most of the emission reductions coming from deforestation. A pretty large share comes from sustainable management of forests, so that is Malaysia mostly. Then we have a little bit of enhancement, some degradation, and a very tiny bit of conservation. And now, just allow me to go into one particular detail, because this is really something that stands out if we look over the 5 years of reporting. This is the uncertainty reported in the deforestation area estimates. So in 2014, no uncertainties were provided. And you can see how gradually the percentage of uncertainty reporting has really increased tremendously. Now, this is very important. This is very important because it helps us to understand the data. It is good for transparency. And transparency, as you all know, this is really a key part of the Paris Agreement. Then, just underneath, I also reported the combined uncertainty, which is the uncertainty in the activity data and the emission factors combined. So what we see in 2019, 71 countries presented the combined uncertainty. Just one, let's say, reminder. So let's say these are the historical emissions. That could be our reference levels. The green points is the monitoring we do during the reference period. So one thing is the uncertainty that we see around the emissions over the results period or over the historical period. But another thing is the uncertainty around the actual emission reductions. And this was hotly debated when the paper came out, so that's why I just wanted to spend 1 or 2 slides on it. And Till Neef actually prepared this very fancy, but I think very helpful slide, which shows, so the colored lines is the uncertainty you have in your emission estimate, so your reference level and your monitoring over your results period. So now let's assume that we have an emission reduction of 30%. The uncertainty over our emissions are 20%. That means that the uncertainty over the emission reduction is 50%. So the uncertainty around emission reductions tends to be much higher than the uncertainty around the emissions that we assess. Why is this important? Because of offsetting, for example. So this is really a discussion to be had if, forest emissions are thought of in the future for the purpose of offsetting, where you really want 1 ton of carbon to correspond to 1 ton of carbon. So with that discussion point and this probably overly complicated slide, I would like to pass the floor to Eric.
I just want to say thanks, Eval, for having this session on SEPAL, or inspiring this session for us today. And I'm super thrilled to be back in Rome. I don't know, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Eric Lindquist. I'm a forestry officer and the lead technical officer of the SEPAL platform. I was in Rome for 8 years, 9 years, based here for 9 years before being outposted to Quito, Ecuador for the last year and some change. So I was the remote sensing specialist for 2 cycles of the PRA, and now work with the forest monitoring unit, management unit. I still don't know actually what our name is. Sorry. Anyway, so it's great to be back. Quito is a wonderful city. I enjoy it very much. It's also great to be back in Rome amongst friends and colleagues. So hopefully the presentation works, or I will be left to gesticulate.
Well, maybe we open the floor very quickly for any reactions to Marieka's presentation, just while we wait for Eric's presentation to load. No. But I will say, actually, we should have probably linked those 2 things. The uncertainty reporting, just about all of that is done through SEPAL. So it's super exciting for us to see, you know, the countries improving their data, but also for the first time being able to report uncertainties around that data using our platform. So yeah, super exciting. Because that, of course, I mean, the accuracy of the data is a fundamental question under the Paris Agreement, having transparent, accurate data. So that's the direction we're heading. Is everything all right with the presentation? That's loading. That's loading. But no reactions? Any reactions to what you've heard so far? No? Okay. We'll just bear with us for a moment while... So it's very exciting, actually. I was mentioning, I'll just fill in some time. I was mentioning the possibilities for the Planet Labs data. Monitoringfao.org, the press release should come out soon. But Meta is meeting with the CEO of Planet Labs, an ex-NASA, Will Marshall, after the TED-style talk. And she's going to be talking also about collaboration beyond what we're working on. I think other parts of the department and other parts of FAO could really, this sort of daily data that is commercial, could really advance our work as FAO. And it is their first contract with the UN, and it did take a while, and Eric, I'm sure, will mention that. Because as the UN, we are a bit of an unusual beast, and we have a lot of privileges and immunities, and working with private companies, they don't usually understand those privileges and immunities. So we overcame those difficulties with a lot of support from our procurement unit and the legal office of FAO to have this first contract with them, which is very exciting. So I think for the planet data, watch this space, but I think for many parts of the work that the forestry department does, having daily data and that capacity in the countries to work with that data can really advance our efforts at the departmental level. Any questions on that? Yes, please.
We don't speak anymore on the planet data or Planet Lab data. Do we have full access to use it in whatever capacity we want vis-a-vis or jointly with the government? How does that work in practice?
Exactly. So a great question. So basically the idea of the procurement that was done by FAO in collaboration with the World Bank and other support providers was that the primary audience is the governments, the 8 governments in the country. So the Ministries of Environment and Forestries will have institutional licenses. FAO has an institutional license. The parts of the World Bank working with us have licenses for this. So we wanted to make sure the support providers had organizational licenses and the countries had licenses. So from FAO, I think we can explore its use for other parts of the house, definitely. I mean, we're going to be working flat out from our side, which is on the on the forest measurement side, but there are many other applications. And we've been waiting to have a meeting with CIO and CBDS. Matthew's here at the back somewhere. Yep. And explore how this data can be used for other applications.
Just there's another second.
Yeah. Please keep going.
And on the same topic, you said it's daily data, but what is the resolution? And would that be? I mean, we have a lot of monitoring of things that happen in forests every day. What's the limit here?
3.7 meters. So it's high resolution, but its main attraction we have. I mean, you can get 30 centimeter commercial data, but it's really hard to analyze. 3.7 meters, I think we can handle, but the main thing is that it's daily update. So Eric will talk more about this, but it allows you to create really clean images when you put together all the daily slices. We have a big problem with clouds, but please, this is the expert, so I'm very happy to hand over to Eric.
Oh, that was great.
Okay.
Keep on.
Please, Eric,
Keep on.
go for it.
Is it? Can I go? Okay. Whew. All right. I will. Good afternoon. I'm Eric Lindquist, like I already said. So I'll present quickly. This is a general presentation about what is SEPAL and what it can do and why we've done it. I hope it's at the right level for everybody. If you've heard this before, I'm sorry. You're going to hear it again. But basically, so SEPAL, I'm a botanist from a previous life. And so SEPAL, we chose the word SEPAL and then we found the words. We chose the acronym first, basically, and then filled in the words. So it's a great acronym, I think, because it's botanical, and the sepal is, of course, that part of the plant that protects the flower before the flower blooms. But it stands for System for Earth Observation, Data Access Processing, and Analysis for Land Monitoring, which is a bit of a mouthful, and this is the team that is responsible for it here. I have to thank the government of Norway, which is our major donor, and have been very supportive of us throughout our progression. And then, of course, people are starting to join in now, and we're creating more interest. What I want to say, if you remember only two things from what I'm about to tell you, that these are the two things. Like, now is a good time to be a remote sensing scientist. We have the most amount of data that we've ever had about the surface of the Earth from space. That we've ever had. It's a wonderful time to be doing what I do, doing what we do. The challenge, however, with all of this information is still how to make the best use of it, to make the most efficient use of it, and to make sure everybody has a chance to access and use these data, because it's spectacular what we can do. So SEPAL, and indeed the whole Open Forest initiative, if I want to get poetic about it, are sort of expressions of our desire to capitalize on this moment and to enable this, the key word, and Julian mentioned it, is autonomous, to enable autonomous information gathering, analysis, and decision making. And this is where we've put the platforms, this is where we've put Open Forest in general. We've put it in this niche that I think is a really great spot to be of, we're not generating data. I don't generate information for people. We enable people to generate information themselves in a fast and efficient way. So we want to improve with the SEPAL platform. Our major goal is to improve the data access, the processing, and delivery of satellite data and information products. And again, I want to focus on this term autonomous. It's very important that I don't do it, but that other people do it. SEPAL is based in the computing cloud. It's based right now on the Amazon cloud, but it also depends a lot, very much on Google Earth Engine and Google Cloud structure. So we're using what I consider to be the best part of Amazon cloud and the best part of Google Cloud. You don't see much of that or any of that. It just is happening in the background. And we've combined those two into a platform that does pretty much, that's powerful and gets a lot of stuff done. It's completely open source, which we're also proud of. So all of the code is available on GitHub. You can access it, copy it, do whatever you want to with it, basically. See what we've done is completely transparent. And I have to give a huge amount of thanks to Daniel Veal over there, who's one of our main programmers of the SEPAL platform, does an amazing job. He takes junk code and dreams and turns them into elegant things and reality. So without Daniel, this platform would not be what it is. Also, Luca Paolini, he's not here right now, but the two programmers that support this are amazing. So basically what we do is we combine a lot of open source, some of the best open source tools that exist, and we put them in one spot and we make them work for you. So we combine code that we've developed from Open Foris. We combine the Google Earth Engine. We use R statistical package, a lot of Python and Orfeo Toolbox and some others. We put them all in one place and we make them work, operable. So you can access all of these things. Sometimes you're accessing them and you don't know you're accessing them, but they all just work. What do we want to do? The main goals are to reduce the time it takes from innovating something to adopting or applying something. You can have a great idea, you can have great code, you can put it in GitHub, you can have a great algorithm and you write a paper about it. You can have a great idea and it doesn't go very far. With the SEPAL platform, we can take those algorithms, take that code, take those ideas, and make them immediately operable, make them work, and spread them around to all of the people who use the platform immediately. A big thing is we want to remove the fear of making mistakes. We want to enable fast failures, basically. So, you know, before when I was doing my PhD in remote sensing, it took me months and months and months to fail at something, and now I can fail at something in a matter of minutes, which means I can find the solution a lot faster. I make mistake. It costs me nothing, and then I get to the point where I've actually solved the problem, and I can do that a lot quicker. It enables collaboration. So we have a common platform. It just works. We can take code from other people. We can take ideas from other people. We can share ideas around and spread these immediately throughout all the SEPAL users around the world. And finally, we've produced a platform, I think, that breaks a lot of the barriers that currently or used to exist for accessing analysis-ready data, which access to supercomputing power. So everybody who uses SEPAL has access to a supercomputer, no matter where you are in the world, without having to buy that infrastructure or maintain that infrastructure. It's really incredible. And then, of course, we're providing all the maintenance and the dependencies. So like I said, you log into the SEPAL platform, and on a good day, it just works for you. You don't need to keep track of all the things that could break. We improve training consistency. So with our platform, and we often do, we host multiple trainings across multiple continents all simultaneously. So at any one day, we can have hundreds of users on the platform across all the continents, all receiving the same kind of training, all receiving the same look and feel of the platform. And also important is that it fits into existing methodology. So if you have an awesome processing chain, or if you have awesome methods that you don't want to change, but you could jump in and out of the platform to improve here and there the speed with which you do something, we do that. So it's not like if you use the platform, you have to buy in to the whole thing. We're not trying to change anybody's processing chain that works, but we would like to help if we can. So we want to bring the people to the data and the algorithms, the software, and the recipes. We operate on this premise, which Wikipedia said Confucius said, but then I've read a little bit more, and it turns out he didn't say that. But it still holds true, sort of holds true. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, but I do and I understand, and that's what we want to enable with the platform. Just doing things, do more, get stuff done. What can you do? You can create composites and mosaics of optical data, Landsat, Sentinel. So we work closely with the USGS and the European Space Agency to access their data. You can process these data quickly and easily. You can make classifications, change detection, image segmentation, all sorts of technical blah, blah. You can create time series analyses. You can do sample-based estimation, and then of course you can integrate your own data. So if you have access to high-resolution data or your own localized data, you can access that and use it. It's pretty cool that way. This is an illustration I will leave you with to look at on your own time, but this is sort of how SEPAL works and how it distributes how it works in the cloud and how it distributes everything. That's a video that I will skip. We have the capability, and I'll show some examples of the output. We have the capability to expand the functionality of SEPAL. So it works natively with Google Earth Engine and some access through the space agencies. But we also have the ability to accept user-programmed, we call them applications or modules. So this part of SEPAL is for people like me, who's not a computer programmer, but I write statistical analyses in R and things like that. We can do that, host it on the SEPAL platform, and make it available to all the users in the world. So like Remy and Yelena have been working hard on the stratified area estimation analysis and design modules, some other modules. We do it once, we code it once, we put it in a button, and everybody has access to it. So it's all standardized and step by step. It's pretty cool. We have access to high-resolution data for sample-based assessments and reference data collection. This is really important to go along with what Marika was reporting about confidence intervals, and getting those confidence intervals to the point where a donor can be assured that they are contributing to reductions of emissions and reductions of deforestation. That is the key and what we're all trying to make happen. This is Rome from Sentinel-2, just a pretty picture. This is cool stuff that are enabled with the platform that didn't exist, we couldn't do before. So this is all of Ecuador. From every 2 weeks, a radar composite wall to wall, so we can look at change detection over time in a place that's very difficult to do remote sensing, and it's impossible to do on your desktop or laptop. You can do this in the cloud. You can do this on SEPAL, assemble these types of data within hours, and then you have new information that you never had before, and it's pretty awesome when it works. This is another example of how Ethiopia, on the scale of Ethiopia, it's insane. It's incredible. We couldn't do it before. We can do it now, and they can do it now, which is the most important thing. Just some more pictures of how we're using the available data. This is L-band radar, so it penetrates through the canopy, and we use it to monitor the state of wetlands for one in the world. Another example of Sentinel-2 showing shrimp farming off the coast of Indonesia. This is an example of how we analyze like 450 acquisitions of Landsat data. So 450 since 2010 to 2018. Again, an analysis that is impossible to do on a desktop. I tried and it crashed my computer for a long time. But we can do it in the cloud. And this is looking at 450 different pictures of the Earth over time, and we can get these trends in changes over time. Where you see bright red here are very strong negative changes. This is in Honduras, where they were using this analysis to try and get in front of an insect attack that was happening in their pine forest. So the idea is then to use this information and try to find the fronts of change where you can still make a difference and try to save the canopy. This is an example of using Sentinel radar time series to separate crop types in a part of Ecuador. So you can see the difference here in cultivation types, rice cultivation versus other types of cultivation. And this is just using a time series of radar that anybody can access and download. Again, this is an example of rice cultivation or different cultivation types outside of Bangkok, Thailand, showing different types of treatments in their fields. This is field condition in Nicaragua, where we looked at, again, a time series of Landsat going back in time, and then looked at it, right, what is today compared to the historical average or the historical normal for this field. And we can get field conditions, red is drier, green is wetter, that kind of thing, and we can do that as soon as we get a new acquisition. This is cool stuff that Remy just showed me actually today, where in Republic of Congo, they were able to use a time series analysis and detect they updated a map from 2016 to 2018 with new changes just by running this analysis and adding those changes to the map. So we get new forest roads that were old and are now regrowing, changes in there's some fires in the wetlands, and all of these dynamic changes, and we can do this rather quickly. And actually, they did it in Brazzaville. So it's pretty sweet to see these results. I just saw these this morning, so they make me happy. This is my happy moment of the morning. It's also super cool. Julian mentioned it, but we can now do this all on a mobile phone. So, you know, wherever you're sitting, you can make mosaics and composites and start processes and send commands to the computing cloud. And you know, we want you to be productive everywhere. No more resting. This is an example of the little phone interface using and creating a radar composite over all of Nicaragua for a time period. It's super cool. I don't know why it's cooler on your mobile phone. It just is. Like a little mini fridge is cooler than a big fridge. I don't know why, but it just is cooler when it's miniaturized. Julian showed this chart. I'm proud of this chart because I figured out how to make it. So these are every session of SEPAL. So every time somebody accessed SEPAL from wherever it was they are in the world, from 2016 to now, the thicker white lines are where we have more of our access. But it's pretty awesome to see where this is spreading to and the voices it represents. You know, it's not just like a university in the United States or Canada telling everybody what's going on in the world. This is everybody in the world telling us what's going on, which I think is so cool. If you can get that feedback, it's really, really amazing. I can say this, right? I can say this, that we have planet data. Sorry. So planet data. We all know about it. We're getting it. The signatures are on the paper. It's unbelievable to me because I have this little chart showing, and this is all tongue-in-cheek, please. Hope I don't get in trouble. This is the high-resolution image procurement process interspersed on the timeline of the Roman Empire. So you can see that we have, so just for scale, this is when the high-resolution data procurement idea was formed and proposed, and then on the same time scale, we have the actual purchase complete. So it was a lot of work by a lot of people. I really, really appreciate all the effort put in by our team, by the Planet team, or by all the people who submitted proposals, by the Planet team, by the legal team, by the CIO team, by all sorts of people. It was more complicated than I thought, but we finally did it, and hopefully it's going to be awesome. Why is high-resolution data important? You can see more, basically. You see more detail. You see more things daily. There's some really good work done in Norway showing, like, so you can see on the far left is the confidence in interpretations that you get using high-res data versus that which you get using coarser resolution. So we start with 1 meter data, 10 meter data, all the way out to 100 meter data. And you can see that there's this sort of sweet spot in between 1 and 10 where the confidence about interpretations is higher and more consistent. You can see on the right-hand side that all the people that were interpreting the high-resolution data all had similar answers. As you got coarser resolution data, you start to get quite a bit of difference in the interpretations. So we thought we needed something in between 2 and 10, something manageable that we could find that would enable those interpretations to be more similar across interpreters, and people could be more sure of what they were looking at. Again, all in an effort to reduce those confidence intervals so that donors feel comfortable that their donations are going towards actual reductions in deforestation. And this is why these data are so important. This is pretty cool. This is forest area estimates using very high resolution data all the way to coarse resolution data. And you can see that forest area estimates go up and confidence intervals about those estimates decrease. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we start integrating these data. But again, the consistency and the confidence about our estimates will improve. It's pretty awesome. That's it. I have one more slide again. So SEPAL, we want to improve the connection between data, users, and information products that people need and use for monitoring everywhere. We want to increase the production speed required to make these products. We want to create an open, flexible system that people can use wherever and whenever for whatever they want to do. And we want those data to be owned by you, by the people that are doing the analysis. And of course, finally, we want to build the capacity around the world for autonomous monitoring and reporting so that it becomes a continuous thing and a positive feedback for as long as possible. There's some stuff here that I'll leave you with because in the presentation, so you can sign up for SEPAL if you want. It's super easy. You just go to sepal.io and there's a login if you have a username. There's a sign up if you don't. Everything's free. We just have to put the sign up there so we can keep track of our users and you get a chance to tell us what you're doing with the platform. And yeah, with that, I thank you very much for your attention and listening to me yabber on for a while. And like I said, it's a pleasure to be here and present this to you. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Eric. We're right on time, actually. So now I think is the bit that we looked forward to because I think we've wowed you and we've shown you some really cool stuff that has a lot of potential, but we really want to hear from you, the people in the forestry department, about your needs, about how you can use some of these platforms to enhance what you need to do, which I'm sure is many. So please, I open the floor, and we have all the experts here. And we really hope to answer your questions and have a great dialogue for the last 30 minutes. So please jump in, don't be shy, and ask any questions. We just need one icebreaker. Magnus, please.
I'm not so shy. This is fantastic work, of course. You have a lot of users, and still, I dare to say that you have a lot of promotional work still to do, both internally and externally. In the last African Forest and Wildlife Commission, people basically asked for SEPAL without knowing it. And as it was, we FAO didn't, frankly, tell our country representatives to start using SEPAL there and then. But this is just one example of how we need to further expand the knowledge of this fantastic tool. I think the regional and sub-regional forestry officers, they are essential here. And I suggest that next time we have COFO also, when all the people are here, make certain to have a special information, training, learning, awareness session. So these guys later on, when they are confronted with requests from country representatives, they can say, yes, we have a tool for that. Call that guy, kind of. And I think that would be very useful for, again, further expand the use and the awareness of this tool.
Thank you very much, Magnus. We completely agree. As technical people, I think sometimes we're a little bit shy in coming forward with solutions, but I think we have a great solution, and we want to work with all the different parts of FAO and at the regional, sub-regional level. And I think this is the first step. I mean, this FTN was sort of planned with that in mind, getting the message out there. We do have a lot of trainings, so maybe we open them up when we're working in the region. I know Latin America, where Eric is, I'm sure the regional forestry officers, well, they can just call Eric, who's in Quito, but and Remy, who covers Africa. But please, colleagues, jump in and any more ideas. But we're very aware of that, and we do our best, but we're quite a small team. This is the team. Remy, please.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe just to mention that we have 3 days actually occurring now until Wednesday, where we invited countries from mostly from Africa, but also from Indonesia, so not only Africa, to join in for technical sessions to clarify some of the technical aspects of SEPAL and also updates inside the Open Forestry tool. So we try to keep those events alive, and we try to focus on them and to develop more. But yeah, point taken, we need to also increase our visibility in the regions and our message. So, yeah.
That's a great point. Thank you very much. Please jump in. Yes, please. On the microphone, please.
Like this. Can I ask about the uncertainty? So what are the sources of those uncertainties? Is that because of the sampling? Is it a measurement error problem? Is it a definition problem? And then when you answer that, I would love to know what the reaction has been. Are people as excited as we are to have these uncertainty estimates? Do they know what to do with them? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Javier actually contributed to this section of the uncertainty, so I will pass the floor to him just to say that what I failed to mention before is that of the reference levels, we supported around 70% of those, and so yes, it's also a reflection of the use of SEPAL in the uncertainty reporting. But Javier, you want to say something about the sources of uncertainty?
Unfortunately, you might already know my answer because we have already been talking about it a little bit for a while. But most of the time are basically sampling errors, both in activity data, I mean, you can correct me, both in activity data and in the emission factors. So yes, you are thinking that the uncertainties might be underestimated. That might be true. But again, and this is where I'm passing the ball back to you, because I think very often it's almost like a rather political decision by the countries on which uncertainties to report, because it is not. It is sort of a voluntary exercise which ones to report. So please.
So yeah, just to say something about the motivation of countries. So what the publication also speaks about is some of the first cases for results-based payment under the GCF. And so to participate in this, countries it's a requirement to report on uncertainties. So yes, that obviously motivates countries to report on it and assess it. The only kind of issue we see is that in the reporting, we see sometimes uncertainties are not calculated properly, sometimes only a few sources are included, not all sources. We see that some countries who really did a great effort on assessing uncertainties have higher uncertainties and then get more discount on the payments in the end. So it's not that part is not very motivational, for including more uncertainty. So yes, there are incentives, but they are partial. So we will see. Maybe under other payment schemes in the future, this will be more of a thorough requirement. But we still have to see that.
We call that the uncertainty paradox now, because the more effort you put into reporting better transparency, the worse you might end up being off in a payment for results situation.
You want to add something on?
Yeah, just to say that this was really, I mean, the getting uncertainties into the reports was a really good example of how. So we collaborated with the Global Forest Observation Initiative, some major universities, some of the top statisticians that deal with remotely sensed data, and that sort of thing. And that came from like the initial suggestion or the initial methodology was suggested at a very small core meeting. That word got put up to us, and we spread it out started spreading the word to all the countries and all the different people. And you can see on that chart where, about the time that took hold, 2014, 2015. And just to see now that even with, it's like what problems would you like to have? Would you like to have the problem of the uncertainty, what's it called? The uncertainty paradox? The uncertainty paradox, or just everybody thinking they're right when actually there may be degrees of correctness. So we've changed the problem, but I think it's a better problem we have now than what we had before.
The uncertainty paradox. No, it is particularly our team, we're working a lot with the governments. It is a very uncomfortable situation when you have to explain to senior government officials why there's a lot of uncertainty in their estimates, but it's a discussion we have to have. Please, questions on the, please, yeah, from Indonesia. Yeah.
Thank you, Julian. Who are you from Indonesia? The first maybe I want to ask to Maria about the result. Isn't there from aggregate country reporting, or do you doing some analysis? How about the definition of deforestation? Isn't the same each country, because some say is permanent loss and some say just change to 1 year and 1 year. Isn't the same division? And then for Eric, thank you for your presentation. Maybe you need to consider about the lack of technology in the development country. I think if we work in the lack area, we still have the problem about the internet connection. Maybe how to solve about this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have a little chapter on this forest definition. So first of all, the countries do not use all the same definitions, so have different definitions of forest and therefore also different definitions of deforestation. So we have a chart where we show the different percentages. Most countries use the Marrakesh thresholds range, which is a range which is actually under the Kyoto Protocol, so it does not necessarily apply to these countries, but most of them are within those ranges. So yes, some countries have a section on the use of forest land, so the distinction between what is actually tree cover but under agricultural use that would then also be or not be considered forest. Other countries do not have this distinction. In remote sensing, it's obviously difficult to distinguish temporary tree cover loss from permanent tree cover loss, and this is a country that keeps coming back in the technical assessments. So a lot of countries, when they use temple-based data, they correct for it by using the most recent imagery and checking if there is forest growing back, so that part of what is being picked up as loss is actually corrected as temporary tree cover loss, but it remains to be very challenging. So this is something that countries that sometimes they get the notion of that they might overestimate deforestation because of the temporary part.
Right, internet. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, we do the best we can with, so the idea was to just, the idea was to, initially was, people in the countries, technical people in the countries were downloading all of the data from the repository, the space agencies basically. So DRC is a great case. I was working there where how long would we spend to download? I mean, it would be months and months just to download the data. So the idea was, yes, we need to start with like just a basic amount of internet, because people were using the internet anyway to download the data. And then we tried to find a system whereby you could, with just a very little signal, start a process on a very big computer, and then if that signal broke, that process would still keep on, and you could check it later when you had a better signal. It's still an issue, but I think hopefully the internet will continue to improve globally, and that access will just get nothing but better as we move on. But yeah, it's an issue. I mean, you have to have at least a little bit of a signal somewhere to do the work. But it's been tested in a lot of places, as you were part of that test.
I can just add something. Then also the improvement of mobile networks has also helped us run training. So we've often run trainings just from making a hotspot from a cell phone. And now that we have SEPAL on cell phones, people in trainings, even if they don't have a laptop, they can bring a tablet or run the contents of the training from their cell phone. So that's also breaking some barriers as well.
Javier?
Yeah, just as an add-on to this issue, I just came back from a country that has very good internet access, but unfortunately blocks Google. So that's a bigger issue that cannot be solved with more internet. But I don't know. Yeah.
Talk about a difficult question. God. But Eric, yeah.
We're not allowed to answer that question. We can speak offline about that.
But there's not many countries, and I know some of the countries we work, there are sanctions, and yeah, some of the data providers, the space agencies, just, you know, they're sanctioned countries. But we often actually find a way to still work with those countries through, yeah, by being imaginative, because we want to support all the countries to improve their data, to have the capacity. Please, yeah, and apparently people can ask questions through Skype for Business, right? If they write a question, can we see it, or? Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's not good at all. But oh, well, it's just us. But yeah, please, any more questions? Any questions you like?
Can I just say something
Remy?
that hasn't been said? Yes, is that the new version of SEPAL is available in French and Spanish, and this is also a feature that has helped us reach better in places, notably in Africa, for instance. To have a French-based SEPAL edition is a way of reaching out better and making it more user-friendly for people. So I just want to say that.
Thanks, Remy. And in terms of outreach, we're actually just about to start a project with the World Bank where they see the potential of SEPAL, but they're funding us directly to develop really professional level training materials, online tutorials, to make it even more autonomous. So that's something we're going to be doing in the next 6 months, and it's super exciting. I think that'll even expand the reach to people that don't even need to participate in SEPAL trainings, although there are many instances of people going in with a little bit of knowledge in it and being able to do quite sophisticated analysis within SEPAL without any formal training from FAO. But I think we're going to get even better in the next 6 months in terms of having a product that is fully self-explanatory and a user can basically guide themselves to do very sophisticated analysis for what they need to do. Please.
Hi. So is there a role for ground-truthed data here where you're unsure about what the classification, and then if you had somebody on the ground who could say this is a young tree farm, it's a mango plantation, or it's secondary forest?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Yeah. I mean, the most valuable commodity in all this remote sensing work is the truth, some version of the truth, and whether that comes from the best source of the truth, as far as we know, is the ground data. So if you have data from some spot on the ground saying exactly what this is, yeah, that's the best, and then everything can build off of that.
Yeah, so perhaps I should provide context. So I'm in AGP here, but also at Penn State University, and we have developed the famous platform for FAO, which is the Fall Army Warm Early Monitoring System, which is in 136 countries in 21 languages. And so we have the opportunity then to ask somebody, what do you see nearby? And so we're doing this for crop cover classification. We're also using the water productivity tool. So we're going to try to say, you have a problem here, evapotranspiration, for example, or we think you're standing in a maize field, and we're doing Google Earth classifications of intercropping and so on and so forth. And I'll speak with Yelena about this later on or tomorrow. But one thing that's extremely beneficial is to promote tree planting alongside farms or near farms. But if you have some doubt, we could also integrate the two systems whereby we could ask a user, and we have many users on the ground, what are you standing beside, and then have a simple updating system that could better inform the classification tool you have.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the great things about all of this tech is that it enables things like this to occur relatively easily, easily in air quotes, but easily. So like that information you're collecting through your platform can be easily shared or harvested with our platform and vice versa. So if the people in your field need information on like all the history of observations that were occurring in that space since we have a record, that kind of information can be easily generated from us and sent to you, and vice versa. The data you have can be sent to us, and I'm those kind of collaborations and that kind of stuff that comes out of these platform developments is for me one of the most exciting things that we can do. So, I mean, you're talking to the right person with Yelena, and I'm happy to also support that through whatever we can do.
And just for sharing generally, one thing we've been experimenting with is, in terms of cost, is just employing 10 young Kenyans straight out of university to map fields. In our case, we want to know, the great problem with Earth observations is knowing what the field is from space. So we have planet.com coverage for Kenya, we used Maxar and other things, but mostly it's on Sentinel. And we need the ground truth data. So we can collect about 200 to 300 fields per day for $150 by just paying these young people. So that seems to be an eminently scalable system where we could also use it for forests. It's the data we collected, it's on the cloud and then free to everybody as an open access tool or data tool.
That sounds really wonderful. Here we've got a lot to talk about. I think even the new data acquisition that we have for Planet, well, initially for the 8 countries, maybe that can complement your efforts as well. Daily data, and I know it's used, Planet data, used a lot for precision agriculture, and a lot of farmers and farmers groups are using that data, so it's pretty exciting for us as well. Yeah, no, it's a really exciting space. Just to keep talking about the daily high resolution imagery, we have our more modest procurement for the 8 countries, but there is our donor liked what we're doing here so much that they actually launched their own much bigger procurement, and some of you may have seen the tender from Norway for $55 million for global access to this sort of data, and that's, if you haven't, well, the tender's closed, but hopefully sometime next year, we have access for 8 countries that this sort of imagery will be available for the whole world. So they're convinced it can sort of spark the revolution we need on data access and analysis, but for us, we get to start playing with this data in advance of that, and we want to learn what this data can do. It's pretty experimental sort of work. But one of the first tasks for this data, I think, is seeing really clearly what's happening on the ground, really good reference data. Maybe, Eric, you can just talk a bit about the Planet data and what we plan in the short term and longer term to be doing with it, because I'm super interested, but please.
If it's of interest. So we have like varying levels of complexity with what we'll be doing with the daily data. And some of it, of course, we don't even know what we'll be doing with it, but it's going to generate itself, like all good answers do, they always generate more questions than actual answers. So all I know is the first thing we're going to use it for is this version of this thing that's really important is the truth. It will be the closest thing we have to what's actually on the ground than ground data, and we will have it systematically everywhere over these initial 8 countries. And so with that in mind, our hope is that we will be able to generate estimates of forest cover and forest cover loss and land cover and land use changes with the precision required, as I mentioned in my presentation, with the precision required to inspire confidence in donors that the reductions that people are claiming are actually occurring. And that, to me, is the most important thing we can do, is get the money flowing from the donors to the REDD+ countries participating in the REDD+ program to reduce emissions from deforestation and degradation. If we can generate the trust in that process, which I think we can do, then that's an incredible step forward, and that's really easy to implement. That's something that we could implement. Actually, we just got one of our Planet licenses keys today, and we're playing around with it, but it's one of the things we can do within a matter of days, implement that at country scale. The second thing we're going to do is we have the capability of daily download for 10% of the total area of those 8 countries. And so with that access, we will download data daily, run it through our existing time series algorithms, and see what we can find, see what we can see. We feel like we'll get a much better handle on forest degradation, whatever that means to people. We will better define the problem, if nothing else. And forest regeneration, for instance. All sorts of subtle changes that occur on a small spatial scale and a brief temporal scale, we'll be able to start to detect. Whether that's important or not, I think we're still waiting to find out. But the major issue is that we'll be able to detect that and then decide. Again, it's which problem do you want? I would rather have the problem of deciding whether something's important or not than not knowing it exists at all. So we'll shine a light on some of this stuff and see if it's important. And then the rest of it, man, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna have fun with the technological challenges of storing data on a daily basis with 3.5 meter spatial resolution. We're gonna have challenges with making maps with it, with you know, normalizing it, with all the fancy processing stuff you have to do to make an image useful for classification and generating information. All that stuff is going to be new for us and fun, and we look forward to the challenge. And then who knows what? I went to I've heard several presentations in the last couple months. People are using Planet data to track, you know, to track infrastructure, to track green investment, to track insurance claims, to track to look at flooding on a finer scale, like any disasters on a finer scale, to monitoring exhaust from smokestacks to estimate daily power output and power consumption, you know, you know, adherence to environmental regulations and laws. So I think what we're going to find is going to be pretty incredible. But what I do know is that we'll have the platform which will enable this and allow people from all over the world to try it much more easily than they could otherwise. And we'll see what they can do. It'll be fun, exciting.
Yeah, we have an exciting horizon, but our focus, well, in the next year is to work with the World Bank and other support providers for these 8 countries to really quickly, as Eric said, advance the accuracy, the transparency of their forest data, their forest reports, and really unlock climate finance. And the bank is super excited about this. We're super excited. We want to get that climate finance. Many of you may be aware, but a lot of it is sort of parked, right? The World Bank Carbon Fund, over $1 billion parked. That needs to start moving and flowing to countries. So if we can be a part of that, we can make forests part of the solution. Because at the moment, countries just aren't quite there. But we're going to try our hardest to get them there with really bottom-up actions. Please, we're almost out of time, but any further questions or? Remy, please jump on the microphone. Yes, no, you say it. You say it.
If you have not signed up, sign up SEPAL and test it and try it. We've built it so that it can be tested by all of us.
Okay, I think I can say this. Meta won't get upset with me. Well, she's not here. She's in New York. But her own words, right? Luddite. She's a Luddite, she said. And even Luddites in 3 clicks can make satellite image mosaics for any place in the world for any time that they want. And also, yeah. So just 3 clicks, and you can make a screensaver at least. So please, yeah, sign up, try it. Let us know what you think. If it's something we could do something better. We want to do it better. So there's things we overlook, being, you know, being the technical people sometimes we are, it's easy to have your head down and not realize something obviously that could make something better. So please get on, try it, make a pretty picture, and yeah, let us know what you think.
And please, we're on the 7th floor, so don't forget just to come upstairs and well, Remy's just moved to the 4th floor, and Eric's in Ecuador.
Or if you're in Ecuador,
yes, but they're never far away.
Please stop in.
Yeah. But no, we're super
It's
open
lovely
to collaboration.
this time of year, really.
Yeah, apparently it is a beautiful place. Good coffee and chocolate. Please, yeah.
It's just a comment about the expansion of the use of SEPAL. When I studied remote sensing at the university many years ago, we were learning image processing programs like EarthDAS, MV. And then when you started working, that's what you were using because that's what you learned. So I think that inserting SEPAL at the university programs, it will increase a lot the use of SEPAL. Here I have a picture, a professor of remote sensing in Equatorial Guinea, so that's what we are trying to do. So I think in other countries it could also be an idea.
Yeah, it's a really good suggestion. In fact, already we have about almost 50% of SEPAL users are government, inside government, so inside the government ministries. But the next largest user of the platform is academic and research institutions. So we always want to do more. But yeah, it's already, we've had people doing courses with it in Mexico, people doing courses with it in different parts of Africa as well. And we will happily support Equatorial Guinea in creating whatever content or whatever course that they would need to do. So it's a wonderful suggestion. We do try to align ourselves very closely with the academic and research because that's where a lot of the really new ideas are coming from as well.
Just to complement that, actually, Van Gedingen is actually paying us to use SEPAL. So please, we'd like to hear more.
Intentaré hablar en español. Mi inglés no es muy bueno. Bueno, me van a disculpar por ello. Es interesante el uso de la herramienta SEPAL, pero como van comentando, aunque mi inglés no escucho todo, he hablado con algunos miembros. Me gustaría, como ha dicho Lorena, me gustaría que al menos en la base de las universidades donde se tiene que promocionar a muchos recursos, que más o menos haya cimiento de uso de SEPAL. Yo no sé a quién hay que acudir para que eso pueda funcionar, pero para mí es súper interesante. Gracias.
¿Puedo responder en español o inglés o los dos? Yeah, well, seguramente vamos a, tenemos, espero que vamos a tener rápidamente la oportunidad de hacer algo en su país y seguramente cuando tenemos tiempo y espacio, estamos listos para apoyar su equipo, sus estudiantes y todo eso para mejorar y aumentar el uso de la plataforma en el país, sí, seguramente. Espero que es lo que podemos hacer, planificar esta semana, creo que, ya. Yeah. Sí, tenemos una interfaz casi en español. Estamos trabajando, casi es mi palabra favorita en español, casi. Pero ya, estamos listos para tener nuestra interfaz en español y también tenemos tutoriales ahora. Eric Muñoz aquí, él habla perfectamente español y escribe español también al mismo tiempo y él tiene un tutorial para clasificar, crear mosaicos, todo eso completamente en español que puede accesar. Y también vamos a tener un tutorial en vídeo en español que estoy preparando ahora, casi preparado. Yeah.
That was a nice presentation. Estamos casi a la fin de esta sesión. I wanted to do two things at the end. One is, and that is the second point, congratulate this team for what they have done and also for the presentation. But the first point is one why this whole thing is under the FTN Innovation Hub. I believe what we have seen today is a fantastic tool made by people with big brains and a lot of technical know-how. And I'll not say it in Spanish because I can't say it in Spanish, but Eric said something that I think is very important. We have a lot of applications, and in a way the search is on for the applications. And that is not something that this team alone can or even should do. It's really all of us to think, okay, how does this connect to something that I'm doing? And here I think you have heard a little bit of people that do monitoring, and they do land use things at the central government levels. But when he came to the apps and to the nicer things of how fast this can be and how low scale this can be, that opens up a whole new range of applications, some of which colleagues here pointed out, from insurance to money flows to monitoring what has really worked in terms of planting trees in a certain locality for the community or for many other applications. And I believe that's our task all together to figure out, now we have a fantastic potential tool. How do we search for the solutions of how they can be used, and what is the missing link, so to say, of what we have today? I doubt that many of the ones dealing with the things that we do without sort of IT backgrounds would really sign up to SEPAL. I don't think people do that automatically. If there is no connection where they feel that this is how they can use it. And the search, that is, I believe, also what I think it was Magnus who said, well, we're not yet ready to say, we would recommend this for FAO reps, because the FAO reps would possibly have the same questions like some of us have here, at least I have. How can I use this in my immediate environment? Tracking timber, legal or illegal, making plans with communities on planting, whatever, so many things. These so many things we need to find out, and FTN is one of those tools that help us do that. So now I've spoken longer on this than I wanted, but actually this is where we make an added value of all the many, many years that have gone into this fantastic product. So be with us in the FTN context on this, because we will come back to you on asking you on your views of how do you think you can make this a product that works for you and for the people that you deal with in many different contexts. And now to the most important part, thanking our fantastic team here at the front. You'll hardly ever find so many high-powered people in one row in FAO, in one location. So thank you very much indeed. And thanks for all that listened to from wherever you are. We will try to get Roberto and Marco to get this online as quickly as possible, so that if there was a failure in technology, you'll be able to listen to this moving mouse that you saw on the screen. Thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.